Professor Simon, for facilitating the session, and the panelists. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the conclusion of this year's Club de Madrid's annual policy dialogue, titled Driving Sustainable Futures for All. Over the past 2 days, we have had a series of in-depth exchanges on the future of global development, finance, exploring bold ideas and collaborative pathways to make financial system more inclusive, resilient, and effective. On behalf of Club de Madrid and our partners, we wish to thank all of those who have contributed meaningfully to this dialogue. Of course, to the members of Club de Madrid who are present, thank you so much. The panelists, the facilitators, partners, and of course, each and every one of you in the audience. Thank you so much. May you clap for yourselves. It has also been an honor to accompany you as a master of ceremony for the last 2 days. And to share these 2 days of rich and constructive dialogue with all of you. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you so much. Now, to offer our closing reflections, I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Jackson Stephen, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, to make some closing remarks. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. President Turk, Madam Secretary General, Ambassador, Excellencies and friends. Our distinguished colleague, the former Prime Minister of Romania, lifted the mood a little earlier by regaling you with some jokes. I'm going to start the same way. We have in Ireland a genre of jokes that we call an Irish bull, which relies on paradox, and this one seems to me to tell you everything you need to know about the challenges of reform. It seems that there was an American tourist lost in the wilds of the Irish countryside, and after a while he was fortunate enough to come across an old man leaning against a stone wall, and he said, please forgive the poor American accent, he goes, "Old timer, I'm sorry, I'm lost, I'm trying to get to Killarney. Can you tell me how to get to Killarney from here?" And there's an extremely long, pregnant pause, during which the old man takes off his hat, scratches his head a little bit, and finally, after reflecting for a long time, he says, "Well, you see, sir, the thing is, if I was trying to get to Killarney, I wouldn't start from here." And that, to me, is the challenge of reform. But we have no choice. We need to assure the future of a reformed multilateralism, and as the title of this excellent symposium has it, we need to drive for sustainable futures for all. To do that, we've heard, I think very compellingly over the last 48 hours, about the importance of leadership. And Madam Bachelet, you spoke with us about that, and you also spoke equally about the importance of pragmatism. And both of those qualities seem to me to have been in enormous evidence in the membership of the Club de Madrid and in this meeting. They've been greatly evidenced in the energy and the candor of the discussions. I go away very convinced that the utility of being a former head of state or head of government is, on the one hand, your extraordinary deep experience, and on the other hand, your complete liberty to say almost anything at all without fear of the consequences. And that is almost. And that is, of course, what we need. To reprise a phrase that is now indelibly, I suppose, associated with the out-of-fashion wokeism, it's the ability to speak truth to power. And that is what I think you have been able to do over the last 48 hours. It is what we need to do at this moment of enormous challenge for multilateralism and for sustainable development. To continue to press for our planet to remain on course for Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, and to get back on course for the fight against the climate emergency, despite these enormous headwinds that we now face. And yes, to continue to press the case for multilateralism. And after all, as we've also noted, all of the pressing problems of the planet, and conveniently, as I said, they all begin with C, conflict, COVID, which stands in for pandemics, climate, and the cost of capital. All of those, which are bedeviling us, are only amenable to solutions at the multilateral level. And so what you came together to discuss couldn't be more important. We've had a particular sub-focus, of course, on financing for development, and looking forward, Ambassador, to Sevilla in just a few short months. Let me just return a little bit then to that part of our deliberations and say that certainly sitting here in Nairobi, what I would hope for Kenya and countries like it from FFD4 would be some of the following. First of all, as we noted yesterday, not just an outcome document, but something that resembles a compact, a deal at global level. Agreements that if the countries of the global south can take steps radically to scale up domestic resource mobilization, that then the following will follow, that there will be reform and scale up to the multilateral development banks, that there will be a democratization of global financial governance and strengthened accountability, that we will have a strengthened multilateral rules-based and development-oriented debt restructuring framework, and that, yes, we will do something about the iniquitous, and I use that word deliberately, nature of risk assessment and credit rating in this world that is holding us back. And so I very much hope that we can look for your powerful voices as members of the Club de Madrid in that continued run-up to Sevilla. I also hope that you will continue, of course, self-interestedly, to press the case for multilateralism as the only way forward. And there are, as you've all noted, multiple opportunities over the coming months to press that case. Yes, Sevilla, but also the Second World Summit for Social Development in Qatar, COP30 in Brazil, and I feel the need to say, inshallah, if we get to the G20 still as a G20. So all of these are opportunities that we must seize to press the case for multilateralism, to press this case for sustainable financing for sustainable futures. And I want to mention just one more that perhaps hasn't come up as much as it might have done as I close, and that is the Summit of the Future and the Pact for the Future. And the Pact for the Future, of course, contains some really important chapters on youth and future generations, and on financing for development, and yes, on reform to the international financial architecture. You, the 193 member states, you've agreed that pact. Let's get behind it, let's use it, let's keep it on target, and let's use its momentum. So, sincerely then, as I do close, let me first of all echo some of the thank yous that you gave, Mr. Moderator. President Turk, as always, thank you for your leadership. We had the benefit of your leadership in the United Nations for a long time, and I think very favorably of that time. Où sont les neiges? Sometimes is the phrase that comes to mind. Madam Secretary General, Madam Ambassador, for your support and the partnership with Spain, as always. To the Secretariat, thank you so very much. To the members of the club, very, very particularly. And then forgive me if I also bring the thanks close to home to UNON, all of the colleagues behind the scenes that have made it happen. We never remember to thank the interpreters, but they're here hidden somewhere and working very, very hard. On behalf of the Secretary General, on behalf of the Director General, and my own behalf, let me just restate what an honor it has been to host you here for what is still the first time that this forum has been held in Africa, in Kenya, and I think in the Global South, if I'm not wrong.
No, you
have done it in Brazil. But please come back soon. Don't make this a once and only. The axis of multilateralism is tilting, and we feel it's tilting very much towards the African continent and to this great city of Nairobi. So, karibuni tena Nairobi.
Thank you, Ambassador Jackson. Now, it's my honor to invite Her Excellency Cristina Diaz Fernandez Gil, the Ambassador of Spain to Kenya, Somalia, and Uganda. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency Danilo Turk, President of Club de Madrid, Your Excellencies, members of Club de Madrid, my colleague, UN Resident Coordinator Stephen Jackson, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address you on behalf of Spain as the host of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, which will take place in Sevilla in just a few months. Let me express, first of all, my deep gratitude to the Club de Madrid for inviting Spain to its annual policy dialogue, which has focused on financing for sustainable development and has covered important areas of this agenda. Let me mention some of them: the financing challenge, the reform of the financial institutions, the problem of the debt, the mobilization of private finance, international tax cooperation, and financing for social development, among many others. Discussions held here yesterday and today will certainly help to find a common understanding and to find compromise solutions on these key questions that we need to address towards the Conference of Sevilla. Sevilla will mark the beginning of a crucial journey to redefine how we finance sustainable development. The mobilization of political will from all countries will be essential, particularly considering the cost of inaction, both in terms of global trust among stakeholders and the credibility of the multilateral system as a whole. The urgency of our task cannot be overstated. The SDGs financing gap now exceeds $4 trillion annually. 56 nations spend more than 10% of their budget on interest payments, almost twice as much as a decade ago, and to the detriment of education, health, and public services. Among them, 17 nations exceed 20%, close to the limit of default. The compounding effects of conflict, climate shocks, and a slow recovery from COVID-19 have further strained the already limited official development assistance. The imperative for action has never been greater. We must match ambition with action. This 4th conference must deliver concrete actionable outcomes. We must ensure developing countries have the fiscal space needed to implement their national development strategies and advance the SDGs. We are hopeful that together we can reach consensus. Let me take this opportunity to thank the co-facilitators, Nepal, Zambia, Mexico, and Norway for their excellent work regarding the draft of the outcome document, which should be well balanced with concrete and ambitious proposals. If you allow me, at this point, I would like to highlight some of the key aspects that Spain considers fundamental to maintain and strengthen in the final document. On domestic public resources, we support the negotiations of the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation, progress toward effective taxation of large fortunes through both international and national measures, global environmental levies on carbon emissions, and strengthening the fight against illicit financial flows, for instance, through the creation of a global asset registry. Second, on special drawing rights, we support the commitment to rechannel at least 50% of the 2021 SDR allocation, a commitment that Spain has already fulfilled. And in this regard, we call on other countries to join this effort on the road to Seville. Third, on debt, Spain advocates for the systematic and harmonized inclusion of debt payment suspension clauses in cases identified in the zero draft: climate emergencies, pandemics, and food security crisis. And we also support extending these proposals to all creditors, both public and private, and wish to ensure that middle-income countries are also eligible. We also call for enhanced dialogue among the UN, the Paris Club, the G20, and other official creditors to address debt sustainability comprehensively and inclusively. Fourth, regarding the reform of the international financial institutions, our goal is to work to make these institutions more inclusive and representative. And in this regard, to seek to secure a commitment in Seville to achieve gender parity in decision-making bodies within international financial institutions, as indicated in the Zero draft, while setting a clear timeline for its implementation, such as by 2030. We want our commitment to the 0.7% of the GNI for ODA to be reaffirmed, while recognizing that official development assistance alone will not be sufficient. And in this regard, we also need to measures to facilitate the effective mobilization of private finance and promote impact investment. We need to ensure a gender perspective across all chapters of the financing agenda and call for further strengthening of this area, for example, through commitments to increase investment in the care economy. Finally, we must guarantee follow-up mechanisms for this agenda to ensure that the financing commitments agreed upon generate mandates that are effectively monitored and evaluated. Excellencies, we hope that Seville will mark the beginning of a new alliance, a global partnership that helps close the financing gap for sustainable development and accelerates the implementation of the SDGs with the constructive contribution of all stakeholders at all levels. Spain stands ready to contribute to this effort, and we trust that we can count on your support to make the conference a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador. Now, I wish to invite the last speaker of the day, the President of the Club de Madrid, President Danilo Tuck, and to thank you once again for your leadership and putting together this conference. Thank you so much. So, President Tuck.
Thank you very much. Madam Cristina Diaz-Fernandez-Gil, the Ambassador of Spain to Kenya, Somalia, and Uganda, Mr. Stephen Jackson, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Kenya, fellow members, colleagues, friends. Let me start with an apology. I'm speaking as the last speaker. And that, of course, is not a very pleasant job because I know that everybody wishes to leave. On the other hand, we are all still in this conference room, and I believe we all share the feeling of an important accomplishment. We have had a very good and very rich discussion, and that in itself is something we need to be happy about. As we come to the close of this annual policy dialogue, I wish to express my gratitude to our hosts here in Nairobi, to all participating institutions, and above all to the people who brought their wisdom and urgency to our discussion. We gathered here as democratic former heads of state and government to revisit old debates, not to revisit old debates, but to send a clear political message. Our global financial system is no longer entirely fit for the purpose, and the cost of delay is too high to ignore. Over these 2 past days, we have addressed urgent challenges and development and climate finance. And we have done so with honesty, fully aware of the world we are navigating. The geopolitical context is not only difficult, it is shifting in ways that risk reversing years of progress. The basic trust that sustains global cooperation is eroding under the pressure from contestation, disinformation, and political narratives that privilege isolation over solidarity and short-term gain over long-term responsibility. In some influential capitals, international principles and commitments are being reinterpreted as optional, and multilateralism is increasingly questioned, not only on the basis of effectiveness, but also political convenience. We do not deny the reality but neither do we surrender to it. Instead, we have chosen to focus on what can be done now to repair the global financial architecture and to empower countries and regions to advance solutions that are realistic, fair, and anchored in the values of dignity and sustainability. Now, this is not about idealism, but about political clarity. In a world where consensus is harder to build, progress will depend more than ever on coalitions coalitions for peace, not coalitions of the willing for war, coalitions of willing for peace and development. There is a need for regional and subsequently, and I hope consequently, for global leadership and cooperation, new partnerships, and multilateralism that is not only inclusive, but is also resilient to political headwinds. Throughout these 2 days, we have heard a wide range of thoughtful and ambitious proposals, from how to reform multilateral development banks and unlock the potential of special drawing rights, to urgent need for fair and predictable debt resolution mechanism. We have discussed how to advance global tax justice, protect official development assistance, and mobilize more and better climate-resilient development finance. Many have rightly underlined the importance of aligning private investment with public purpose, of strengthening domestic resource mobilization, and of building inclusive digital and financial ecosystems. These discussions reflect a shared understanding. We know what needs to be done and what needs to change. What we now need is the political will to deliver the needed change. We also know that all these changes have to serve their ultimate purpose, to open spaces and encourage action for the needed and effective economic and social development of the people, for the people, by the people. Dear friends, the credibility of multilateral system will be tested in the months ahead. At the International Conference on Financing for Development in Seville, during the South Africa G20 presidency, the World Social Summit in Qatar, and COP30 in Brazil, we must see clear political decisions, not only communiques. And yes, we must be realistic. Political capital is limited, but that is exactly why bold, visible reforms are needed to demonstrate that cooperation is still possible and that multilateralism can deliver tangible outcomes. Those who believe in cooperation and solidarity must lead by example. Club de Madrid, as a network of democratic former heads of state and government, brings political experience and independence, a level of independence which we have learned and we have earned over years of work, but also a responsibility to speak clearly and to push for what is necessary, even if what is necessary is sometimes inconvenient. Now, we are leaving Nairobi more aware of the difficulties ahead, but also more united in our resolve. This policy is certainly not an end. It is in many ways a beginning of many new activities. Club de Madrid will remain actively engaged in all upcoming opportunities, from Finance for Development 4 in Seville to G20 in South Africa, COP30 in Brazil, and importantly to the Second World Summit for Social Development, as well as other strategic spaces where our voices and our proposals can contribute to meaningful outcomes. We leave Nairobi with our advocacy tools that have been developed in our discussion, our concluding document and call to action, the result of collective reflection and shared commitment to move forward. In the coming days, we will circulate the final version of concluding document, incorporating your insights and inputs, so that together we can give it visibility and impact in our respective arenas. We count on our members and partners to take these messages forward in their engagements, in their regions, and through their multiple networks. And we look forward to deepening our collaboration with many partners who have supported and contributed us in this process. Thank you once again for joining us. especially those of you who have traveled long distance to be here. Let me close by again thanking the United Nations office in Nairobi, to Director General Zanab Hawabangura, and to Resident Coordinator Stephen Jackson for their generous hospitality and steady leadership. This setting has provided not only a space for dialogue, but true environment for cooperation and reflection. I wish to thank the government of Kenya for their hospitality and for support in our deliberations. And to Spain, Madam Ambassador, as a host of the upcoming International Conference of Financing for Development, we send our full support. Positive disposition to work with your government towards a successful and ambitious outcome. May Seville be the moment of real progress, and may we have the opportunity to celebrate that progress together in Spain. Now, with this wish, I would like to declare that this policy dialogue is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, President Tuck. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, they are having no other business. This dialogue is officially adjourned until next year, when there will be another dialogue. So I wish you safe travels wherever you're going. There is coffee that will be served outside here, and then have a blessed evening. Thank you very much.